Welcome to the 10th week of this year's In Times Like These recap. Now, let's get into this, starting with Isabel Torres, who asks Isidore how Max is doing and asks Isidore about how he's doing. After Isidore explains that he's only trying to stay strong for his family, he also informs Isabel how it's painful to see Max in the hospital and that he felt so much pain. Isabel tells Isidore how he understands, informing him about Ulisa's struggles, telling him that she hopes Max pulls through. Jeremiah Dorval comes back home from the hospital, but he expresses to his family about his concerns about whether Devante Torres will strike again. When Jeremiah tells his family that he hates feeling like a sitting duck since he can't prove that Devante terrorized them, Raymond and Shelley remind him that when Devante goes to prison, he won't be a threat. Jeremiah reminds them how Devante would still be roaming free, allowing him to attack the family once again. This causes Shelley to ask if Jeremiah plans to get Devante to admit to what he did. Since Devante won't admit to taking Elvira's life, Jeremiah understands that Devante won't confess to what he's done to them, but feels like he can make Devante suffer the consequences. Neither Raymond or Shelley like what Jeremiah is saying, asking Jeremiah what he plans to do. Terry Burke is approached by Devante at Theodosius' palace, joining her as she eats her meal. She informs him about her custody battle against Finnegan, and Devante tells her how his marriage to Isabel seems to be coming to an end. He goes on to say how the end of his marriage is his fault, since he cheated on Isabel with Elvira, who was a teenager. Since he's being charged with taking Elvira's life, Terry tells Devante to be strong and takes a selfie with him to prove to the world that she's behind him. Isidore sees the picture Terry sent him, pleased that it would help end Isabel's marriage to Devante. In Heidi Russo's office, Zeke Franklin asks Heidi why he's not at the police station. Heidi tells Zeke that she has brought him to her office to give him the option to either face prison time or tell him where he gets his substances from. Reluctantly, Zeke decides to be a snitch for the police, informing that Adaku supplies the product and that Devante Torres is associated with Adaku Danjuma. Vanessa Dorval approaches Yvette Mitchell at the high school, asking Yvette how she's doing. Yvette tells Vanessa that she's fine, thanking her for checking in on her. Vanessa wonders if that's true, wondering how she felt when she heard about Max Russo. All that Yvette tells Vanessa is that she feels bad for him, unsure of how else she should feel. The response that Vanessa gives is that Yvette can come to her for support when she continues to press charges against Max. Immediately, Yvette tells Vanessa that she dropped the charges against Max. Shocked, Vanessa asks Yvette what would make her drop the charges against Max. All Yvette tells Vanessa is that she only wants to move on with her life. This answer isn't good enough for Vanessa, but once Yvette questions if Max hasn't already suffered enough, Vanessa thinks back to the time when Ulisa and even Max claimed that he was innocent. As soon as Vanessa realizes the truth, she admits that Max must have suffered enough since Yvette caused him to go through so much because she lied about what Max did. When Yvette attempts to walk away, Vanessa stops her, explaining to Yvette the damage that she caused over a lie. Suddenly, JJ appears to have heard everything. Nichelle Torres approaches her younger sister Ulisa, expressing to Ulisa that she doesn't trust Pacho at all. Knowing that Pacho is working to obtain Theodosius's palace, Ulisa changes the subject and asks her sister if she noticed that Zeke wasn't at school. Trying to appear like she doesn't care, Nichelle wonders why that should concern her. Ulisa makes the connection between Zeke being a dealer and Max overdosing. She goes on to ask Nichelle if she would feel nothing if Zeke goes away to prison for a long time. The answer that Nichelle gives is that she doesn't care what happens to her ex. especially after he broke her heart. Yulisa reminds her older sister how she had strong feelings for Zeke. Annoyed, Nichelle reminds her younger sister that she was against her being with Zeke in the first place. Even though Yulisa admits how true that is, she tells Nichelle how concerned she is for her in case Zeke goes to prison. Nichelle tells her younger sister not to be concerned about her, claiming that she'd be fine. When Quinlan Franklin asks her younger brother if he's ready to make a statement and attempt to make a deal with the police, he informs Quinlan that he already agreed to be a snitch for Heidi Russo. In disbelief, Quinlan can't believe that Heidi's got Zeke, who is a minor, being a snitch. Zeke promises to make it out alive, but Quinlan tells her brother that this is a promise he can't keep. Heidi sits by Max's side, pleading with him to open his eyes. Suddenly, Owen enters the room, telling Heidi how Yvette dropped the charges against Max, believing that she threatened the Mitchells to make Yvette do so. Heidi explains how she had no idea, stating that Yvette clearly felt guilty over her lies and dropped the charges. When Owen expresses how he doesn't believe it, Heidi replies that she doesn't care, demanding that he leave. Once Owen reminds Heidi that threatening people is against the law, she warns Owen not to threaten her. As soon as she says those words, Gianni enters, and once he figures out what's going on, he tells Owen to leave. After Owen leaves, Gianni asks his wife what that was all about. Heidi informs Gianni that Yvette dropped the charges against Max, shocking Gianni. Suddenly, they notice that Max has opened his eyes. At her work desk, Quinlan calls Pacho to inform him that Zeke has been selling substances and ended up being a snitch against Adaku and Devante after selling substances to Max. This causes Pacho to ask her what she wants him to do about it. Quinlan asks Pacho if he can try to get into the fold of the crime underworld. Baffled by this request, Pacho tells Quinlan that he would only be risking his life, reminding her how Zeke knew the risks. She reminds Pacho that her brother is all that she has. Pacho tells Quinlan that she needs to just trust that Zeke won't make the wrong move and that he'll be fine, telling Quinlan that his focus is to get Theodosius's palace and nothing more, ending the call. Once the call is over, Jeremiah approaches Quinlan, telling her that he needs to tell the world how dangerous Devante Torres is and the damage that Devante caused in his life. Isidore approaches Isabel, showing her the photo of Terry and Devante. The photo proves to her that Devante is ready to move on, upset at the time she wasted and the sacrifices she made to stay married. When he asks Isabel about her sacrifices, she doesn't tell him that she terminated her pregnancy with the child they would have shared together. So she avoids the question, telling him that she'll divorce Devante after he's convicted. After she expresses her plan to pass Theodosius' palace on to her daughters, she walks off as Isidore feels guilt, knowing that he's attempting to gain ownership of the hotel. Ben Russo arrives at the hospital after Max woke up. Ben wonders if his younger brother doesn't want to see him. Max answers that he doesn't want to see anyone after he tried to take his life, feeling like he'd be seen as a quitter and a failure. His family tries to assure him how that's not how the family will see him as, assuring him that the family was hoping that he would pull through and that the family wants to see him get better. Most of all, they try to assure Max that he's not alone. They proceed to inform Max that Yvette dropped the charges, but he feels like it doesn't change much since Yvette hadn't cleared his name. After hearing Vanessa scold Yvette for lying, JJ asks Yvette if it's true. When Yvette refuses to answer, Vanessa informs her younger brother that Yvette dropped the charges against Max. Frustrated, JJ asks Yvette what she has to say for herself, playing them like fools and driving Max to take his own life. In anger, he reveals to Yvette that he's the one who found Max. Horrified, Yvette tells JJ how sorry she is. JJ tells Yvette to save it. Yvette tells JJ she didn't want to hurt anyone, but he doesn't buy it. He goes on to express his disbelief that Yvette pretended to be his friend. Once Yvette tries to assure JJ that she is his friend, he reminds Yvette that people don't convince their friends to believe their lies. Yvette expresses that she doesn't want to lose their friendship. Vanessa asks Yvette if she'll clear Max's name. Once Yvette answers that she can't clear Max's name, JJ wonders why. Vanessa answers that if Yvette clears Max's name, then that means she'd be admitting that she lied to the police, which is a crime. JJ tells Yvette she's worse than he initially believed. When he walks off, Vanessa follows, leaving Yvette in tears. Pacho approaches Nichelle, asking her older brother what he wants. He tells Nichelle how he would like to know a bit more about Zeke. Since Pacho heard about what happened with Zeke after what Quinlan told him, he asks his younger sister if she was aware of Zeke's illegal activities. Angered, Nichelle tells Pacho how he has no right to question her like that when he walked out of their lives. Pacho tells Nichelle that he didn't walk out, but kept in touch. Nichelle reminds Pacho how he only kept in touch through their mother only. Pacho tells Nichelle not to ignore the question, pointing out how he heard about Max's overdose, feeling like Zeke was probably the one who sold substances to Max, wondering if she knew that Zeke was a dealer or not. Devante walks in, wondering why Pacho is hounding his sister. Pacho tells his father how he's only asking out of concern after hearing about Max's overdose. Devante assures Pacho that Nichelle would have never stayed with Zeke if she found out about his illegal activities, assuring Pacho that he has a smart sister, but commends him for looking out for her. Nichelle walks off, telling them how she can look out for herself. When Udell and Wanda Mitchell make dinner plans, he asks Wanda if she's comfortable leaving Yvette on her own. Since Yvette is still on punishment, Wanda feels like they should be able to enjoy the rest of their night without worrying about their daughter. To their surprise, Heidi shows up, telling the couple how she's heard that Yvette dropped the charges against her son, wondering if their daughter will clear Max's name. All they reply with is that Max can focus on recovering, but Heidi reminds them that Max wouldn't be in the hospital in the first place if it weren't for them. As soon as Heidi asks them how they plan to see Yvette punished, Udell and Wanda tell Heidi that she doesn't need to worry about their child since Max is no longer facing charges. Heidi expresses how she almost lost her son due to Yvette's actions and tells Wanda that if she were in her shoes, she'd be going after blood as well, telling them how she's going after blood. Udell tells Heidi to leave, which she does. Once she's gone, Wanda wonders if they should make Yvette confess to her lies to try and get a deal. Udell reminds Wanda how Heidi was certain that she wouldn't agree to a deal, telling his wife that there's another option. Quinlan appears at Ben's office, who scolds her for showing her face after what her brother did to his. She tells Ben how that's why she came, to apologize. Ben tells Quinlan how Zeke should be the one apologizing, but it doesn't erase the fact that Zeke gave Max substances. He goes on to ask if Zeke is paying for what he did. Quinlan answers that he is, since Zeke is forced to be a snitch against Devante and Adaku, all due to his mother. Even though she understands the chaos Zeke's actions caused, Quinlan asks Ben if he can get Heidi to change her mind about making Zeke her snitch. Ben is baffled, asking Quinlan why she thinks he would ever agree to something like that, reminding her that the last time he helped Zeke, Max ended up paying the price, vowing not to make that mistake again. Shelley sees that Vanessa is upset, asking her daughter what's wrong. Vanessa tells Shelley how Max was innocent all along and that her unbelief almost cost Max his life, informing her that Yvette dropped the charges, which confirmed to Vanessa that Yvette lied. She goes on to say how she feels like an idiot and deserves it. Even though Shelley tries to make sure that Vanessa doesn't feel that way, Vanessa reminds Shelley that she warned her to not be so hasty to see Max as guilty, but she wouldn't listen, adding that Max ended up overdosing. Shelley tries to assure Vanessa that what happened to Max wasn't her fault. As for Vanessa, she's unsure since Max clearly needed people in his corner while he was suffering. But Vanessa notices that she made the suffering worse. She goes on to tell her mother how she feels like Max never really got over her, feeling like it must have broken his heart that she saw him as a monster. Shelley tells Vanessa that what matters now is that she knows the truth. Despite that, Vanessa feels like she didn't represent Christ correctly in Max's eyes, but Shelley encourages her daughter to remain in prayer and sincerely apologize to Max the next time she sees him. Once Vanessa states how she wonders if Max will agree to see her, Jeremiah approaches them. Shelley asks her husband where he went after work. Jeremiah tells Shelley how that's what he wanted to tell her and the family, explaining that he went to speak with Quinlan to see if she could agree to interview him about what Devante has done to their family. Can't get enough of the crazy world of In Times Like These? Then, treat yourself to a binge watch of In Times Like These. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You're not ready for what's to come, but tune in anyway.